How's everybody doing this afternoon? Peace sign, deuces. Peace to you guys, man. As you can see, the title is Never Giving Up. Bercehlt versus Miguel Roman. Miguel Bercehlt versus Miguel Roman. I think I spelled that. Bercehlt. The H should have been where the E is. And then, of course, Donaire versus Burnett. So we had these two fights, these two matches. And let me just close my door here because I think we're going to have a disturbance here. I wanted to talk about these two fights in particular because I believe that these two fights actually touch on the subject of something that we as people who believe in Jesus Christ should really be inspired by, and also it helps us to push on a little further. Hold on one second. It seems as though somebody has come here. I'm not too sure who it is. So I'm so sorry to interrupt you guys like this. Let me just take off the sound here, see what's up, and then I will come back to you guys. Okay, so it's just fam that came through. All right, so shout out to you guys. You can leave your comments in the chat section concerning those two fights that we saw. There was a bunch of others, and if you want to talk about any of those, that's cool as well. But both fights reminded me of a piece of scripture, and I want to just find it for you guys because I thought it was really awesome. Right. It's a piece of scripture that from one of the letters Paul had to, I can't remember which one of the churches, but it talks about pressing on ahead, not looking back at the past, but pressing on ahead towards the prize, And I really like that piece of scripture. It's a pity I don't have it with me right now on the drop of the dial. I was looking for it, but I didn't see it. And to me, the attitude of both Donaire and Miguel Roman, who were on both sides of the win-loss columns, really epitomized what I think the Christian walk should be. No holds barred, pressing towards the prize. A lot of us are afraid to fail. A lot of us are afraid to take risks. And quite frankly, I think that's overrated. I think that as you start to become hopeful and you start to see possibilities and you start to, through faith, race towards them, that you will soon become somebody who's committed and dedicated to that, like Miguel Roman did, like Nonito Donaire was, in spite of all the odds and what people say about you. And I thought that both veteran fighters really were a testimony, even though one lost the fight and was stopped and the other one was able to stop an opponent. I think both fights testify to that. That's the attitude we have to have as Christians. And me as a Christian in particular, I'm just showing you guys my face, as a Christian in particular, I find it, something so very refreshing because I know the potential that each Christian has, because we are a part of a very powerful body that has overcome so much and is, in fact, the ultimate body that you could ever have. It's the quickening spirit body. It's words of life. It's a life body. It's a life force body. It's everything to revert us back to what we are supposed to be. It's an eternal body. It's, you know, when you think about it, it's the most, I mean, the most incredible body you could ever have. And it's a spiritual body. It started off with Jesus or head. So there should be no holds barred. You should just press towards the mark of whatever it is that God has shown you, has put on your heart, which is good to go after. And that's the truth. So let me just check you guys in the comment section, and then we're going to go into detail about these fights and why they're so inspirational. Both of them are quite inspirational fights. One was short. One was a 4-rounder. The other one was a 9-rounder. So we'll go into that. And then we'll go into what people were saying about these fighters at going into these fights, and what really came of these two veterans. I noticed there were two veterans, right? So let me see what you guys are saying in the chat section first of all, before we get into anything else here. See what you guys are saying in the chat section. All right, so okay, somebody was watching it and that person probably left. You guys can feel free to comment in the chat section. Please feel free to comment in the chat section, because I don't have a problem talking about the fights themselves, as well as discussing what I think is the spiritual takeaways of these fights. So some people call it an upset where Nonito Donaire defeated Ryan Burnett. Most people say it was, you know, it was a sort of, it was really a tough luck situation where Ryan Burnett sustained a damage to his back in the 4th round when he was facing Nonito Donaire. And in a manner of speaking, I would say it was unfortunate, definitely, to have what they're saying it was a slip disc in that fight. It wasn't a very unfortunate situation. So I would look at it as unfortunate. But I would say to you guys that a lot of people were talking about how Ryan Burnett was winning the Donaire. But what I noticed was Donaire went religiously to the body, and once he backed Ryan Burnett into a corner, he would start to really put in that body work on him. Now, if some of you actually watched at the post-fight event where Donaire was talking, he was talking about how Burnett seemed to be sort of pulling back on his punches. So what happened was Burnett would throw a punch with full force, and then he would sort of snap back out of it. And that could have been the reason why he slipped a disc in his back, because he's not committed to the punch. He throws the punch, and then he tries to pull himself back out of the punch. If you try to do that, you can really snap something in your back. But Donaire said this is what he thought it was. Now, I don't know if that's so. Donaire doesn't even know why that happened. But it's clear that Burnett missed the punch. He threw the punch and missed. And that's when he hurt his back. And you can see he was trying to pull out of the punch. The other thing that's interesting is that, as Donaire said, he was working the body. And I got to say, Donaire seemed to be more and more effective as the rounds went around in getting Burnett to the corner and working his body. I don't know if Burnett would have made any adaptations. But it was clear to me that Burnett didn't have the punching power that Donaire had. Donaire was ripping shots to the body from the beginning round. Now, I left hooks to the body particularly. Good right hooks to the body. But what I found was very interesting. Everybody had counted out Nonito Donaire. Every expert was counting out Nonito Donaire. I even heard Nestor Gibbs on the Boxing Voice, and he was speaking very negatively about Ryan Burnett, who was this high-seeded champion, picking this weak contender, which would be Nonito Donaire. I guess everybody thought that Donaire would not be able to fight well at bantamweight. He would have lost all his weight. He's done for. especially after losing to Carl Frampton at featherweight. You know, he was not going to be good. He lost to Justin Magdaleno. So they thought that Ryan Burnett would just walk all over him, especially at this lower weight class. That was not the case. And I do believe that in spite of all of that, Donaire was able to show that he belonged there. Now he's going to go into the, I think it is the semifinals or the finals. I think that was the semifinal matchup. I'm not too sure. Oh, he's going to go into the finals. And it reminded me, it was a flashback to Jeff Horn versus Manny Pacquiao, where everybody thought Jeff Horn was a walkover and he was going to be the weakest link, and Pacquiao was picking the weakest link to face. And then Jeff Horn pulls off the upset and he beats Manny Pacquiao. And he definitely beat Manny Pacquiao that night. And it just all goes to show that, I think I did this in the video before, it just goes to show that if you are somebody who presses on towards the mark and you don't listen to what people around you are saying, particularly, especially if they're negatively saying things about you which are not true, and especially also if you are pressing towards a higher quality and actually trying to do good, productive things with your life and trying to be a constructive person, a good person, and you're pressing towards the mark, and these other people are saying things about you, the negative things about you, because you can do good and evil can be spoken of you before doing good. You press on still, because the risk is that people will say that about you. And it's not an easy road to walk, but I can tell you it's very rewarding when God rewards you for doing so. And I just think that these two fights are a testimony of that. Now, the other fight which happened was Miguel Bercehlt versus Miguel Roman. Now, what is interesting about that fight was Miguel Bercehlt was doing everything right. He broke down Miguel Roman, and eventually he stopped him. Well, he didn't really stop him because Miguel Roman didn't quit. And even after being dropped a couple times, Miguel Roman persisted onwards. The only way Miguel Roman was going to stop fighting was if Miguel Bercehlt killed him. This was pretty straight. This guy was going to go down on his shield or got knocked out. And Bercehlt just couldn't really close the show in terms of stopping him, like knocking him out, spark out. So what happened was it was accumulation of punishment, and eventually the referee stepped in and stopped the fight. But most people will say they were amazed at the fact that Miguel Roman would get back up and he would keep on fighting. Even if it looked like he was losing the fight, he would keep on fighting. And this fight happened, of course, in Top Rank, El Paso, Texas. And it's very inspirational. Even though he lost the fight, even though the fight was stopped, what was beautiful was this guy was still throwing punches. This guy was still trying to be live. And that's the attitude that we need to have. Even if we go down as Christians, we should still stick to the qualities and attributes that God said. We should not change because we got burned. There's a scripture that says, never get weary in doing good. And we have to press on towards the mark of trying to get to a higher calling and to do what is right and what is good as much as is humanly possible. And that's the thing that we have to focus on. A lot of times there are people and elements and spirits out there which will try to push on us doing what is wrong, or trying to get us to do something wrong, provoke us to do something wrong out there. And as a Christian, we have to stand our ground like Miguel Roman and allow the Lord to fight the fight for us. And that's what basically I, choose to do with my life. And I hope you guys will do the same with your lives. Troy Ingram. Ooh, wow. Troy Ingram. Wow. It's nice to see you, Troy. Troy Ingram says, who is the best fighter in your mind? In my mind, who's the best fighter or the best fighter? Troy, let me ask you, when you talk about the best fighter, are you talking about the best boxer? Are you talking about the best MMA fighter? Are you talking about the best, there are different things like Taekwondo and karate and aikido. What exactly when you say fighter? Because fighter is not specific to any particular sport. Now, if you're talking about sport like mixed martial arts, or you're talking about boxing, or you're talking about someone who has been a civil rights leader, or someone who's advocated for certain things, best boxer today in pound for pound. Okay, so you're talking about who I think today is the best boxer out there. That's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. I think it depends on what person you're talking to, and you're also, what do you mean by best boxer? For me, the best boxer in the world today would have to be somebody who has faced, you know, the best possible competition they could face in the world today. What's the best possible competition in the world today? Who are the best or the hottest boxers in the world today? And then you have to look at also how did that person perform against that competition? Because I think level of competition will tell you level of skill and level of ability and all of that stuff. Then I would like to know, when I look at the best boxer in the world today, I would think also about the person's their skill set. What do they possess? What do they do? And this kind of translates into every other category. What I mean by that is, if you're looking about pound for pound, for example, then you're saying pound for pound, if this person wants to face someone of equivalent size, would this person beat that person or not? So there are different views on that, and I can show you what the different views are on this. So, for example, if you go to BoxRec and you look at pound for pound rankings, Terence Crawford, currently for BoxRec, is considered the best pound for pound fighter of our current time right now. Terence Crawford. Next is Saul Canelo Alvarez, and Gennady Golovkin, Vasily Lomachenko, Louis Neri, Wasakil Wanyank, and then Miguel Bercehlt, Alexander Usyk, and then Anthony Joshua, number 10, Leo Santa Cruz. Okay, that's what BoxRec has. Now, that's not me. I don't personally think that. That's not my opinion. But there's a collective, I think, a popular opinion that the best boxer in the world today, pound for pound, that is Terence Crawford. I personally don't share that opinion, but that is a collective opinion that most people think that Terence Crawford is the best pound for pound boxer in the world today. And I understand why they say so. I have made a video online about who I think is or should be considered the best pound for pound boxer in the world today. But first, I just want to go through a couple other boxers, and then I will want to know from you, Troy Ingram, who you think is the best pound for pound boxer in the world today. So, when I look at, say, for instance, the different divisions, and let me just pull up the different divisions for you to see. So, so we have different champions in the world today. Let me just go to screen share so you can see. It's going to be really quick. All right. So here are all the world champions in the world today. All right. So when we talk about world champions, Anthony Joshua is the guy with the most belts at heavyweight. He has the WBC, WBO, and WBA. And BoxRec considers him the man at heavyweight. I don't, but that's what BoxRec considers him. I believe the man at heavyweight right now is Tyson Fury, mainly because he is the lineal champion, because he beat Vladimir Klitschko. Never had a rematch, so he beat the man. And I think until someone beats Tyson Fury, they can't call themselves the man at heavyweight division. And Tyson Fury's out there. He's going to face Deontay Wilder. Let's see how Wilder fares against Tyson Fury. I'm going to be honest with you. As much as Deontay Wilder feels that he can, and he has jabs and he has different techniques and tools he's going to utilize, the stick and so on, against Tyson Fury. And like I said, if you can go to Tyson Fury's body, there are various ways to try and go to his body. But Tyson Fury has a number of different skills, okay? He has a number of different skills in this book. It's not going to be as easy as Deontay Wilder thinks. And it's not just about trying to hone in on Tyson Fury. And Deontay Wilder is going to learn that Tyson Fury is also a counterpuncher, so that can make things very difficult for him. Now, but Wilder has some new school things, such as conditioning, and he has a certain mental approach to boxing. So it'll be interesting. But I'm going to tell him now, Tyson Fury is not going to be easy to beat. You know, this is going to be a great fight. I don't think Wilder's going to stop Fury. I said it before. I'm going to say it again. I don't think Wilder's stopping Fury. This is going to be a points. This fight is going to come down to points. But here's the thing. A lot of people think that Wilder's not that great a boxer and stuff. Nope. You're going to find out that Wilder's a pretty good boxer. And it's actually going to be a pretty good fight. Sometimes it's going to be explosive. Fury's going to stand toe-to-toe with Wilder, and they're going to trade shots, and y'all going to be shocked. So there's going to be a number of different things going to happen in this fight. But at the end of this fight, I'm guaranteeing you, you're going to be excited to see a follow-up fight. And I also think this fight is going to be closer than people think. You know, people think that Fury is just going to outbox Wilder, and that's going to be it. I don't think so. Okay. So I think this is shaping up to be a very, very good fight. And once these guys deliver a very, very good fight, I think that's what matters. I'm not underplaying Deontay Wilder. I know he can box. I know he can jab pretty well. I've watched his boxing skills. He has improved quite a lot since the last time we saw him. So I am not going to underestimate Deontay Wilder. I'm also not going to underestimate Tyson Fury, because I know Tyson Fury can box. He made Vladimir Klitschko look like a real idiot. And I don't care how athletic you are in boxing. Athleticism is not what this sport is called. It's called boxing, which means once you have proper defense, it doesn't matter how athletic the other guy is. He's just wasting a lot of energy. It's all about your defense and how well your defense is, and you build around that. So really, boxing is all about defense, not about athleticism. It's good if you're athletic, but it should be used in a very calculated, chess-like way. And I think Wilder's he's gonna hold his own. He's gonna get respect. But I don't see any heavyweight right now being pound for pound the best fighter in the world. I'll just be honest with you. In the cruiserweight division, we have some fantastic people like Alexander Usyk, who is now undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world. I don't know if he's vacated the WBA post. I think he is. He's got all the belts. I think that his fight up against his I forgot what his name is. His fight that's upcoming. His upcoming fight with the gentleman who went up to heavyweight and fought at heavyweight and beat David Haye. You guys know who I'm talking about. I think that was a good fight. But in the end of the day, I think Tony Bellew. I think Tony Bellew is going to be Usyk's greatest challenge, and we'll see how Usyk handles Tony Bellew. Bellow's a bigger guy than Usyk. He's going to be bigger. He's going to be stronger than Usyk because he's banged with guys much bigger, heavyweights. So Usyk is going to need everything he needs in his tank to beat Tony Bellew. Bellew is going to be coming for him. So it's going to be an interesting fight. Okay. And Bellew was a cruiserweight champion, undefeated at the time. In the light heavyweight division, I think this is the division. So Alexander Usyk, even though he's undisputed champion, I just don't think he's got the caliber of opposition to be called pound for pound champion. So as much as the heavyweight division is exciting, we really haven't had that caliber of opposition. The only two people who've really fought high caliber opposition so far is Joshua against Klitschko and Tyson Fury against Klitschko. That's the highest level of opposition they've had. They don't really have experienced fighters who they've faced on a regular basis. In terms of the light heavyweight, in terms of the cruiserweight division, it's the same thing. In terms of the light heavyweight division, it's again an evolving division. And so again, I can't really say that anybody there is, has earned the right to be called pound for pound champion. It's an evolving division. When we look at super middleweight, it's the same thing. When we look at middleweight, that's an interesting division because there are two people in that division who have some experience and who have really faced some credible opposition, and that would be Daniel Jacobs, and that would be Saul Alvarez. The other champions in that division are interesting, but they still don't have that much experience. Demetrius Andrade is probably the next one who has as much experience. And then, of course, we have Gennady Golovkin, who has a lot of experience, and he's just stepped up his opposition. But definitely, if you're talking about the most experienced guy with the highest level of opposition in that division, you're talking about Saul Canelo Alvarez, who has a lot of experience, and the level of competition is just way up there. Okay. Now, when we talk super welterweight, you cannot ignore Jarrett Hurd. He is the man at super welterweight right now. Jermell Charlo is the only other guy standing in his way of becoming undisputed world champion. And this guy has beaten, as he's progressed, more and more credible opposition. He's faced guys such as Erislandy Lara, and he was able to beat Erislandy Lara. It was a close fight. He was able to beat him. He was able to face and beat and knock out, actually stop Austin Trout. So he has Austin Trout under his belt. So Jarrett Hurd has two really good sterling names, and especially the Erislandy Lara win was big. But nobody else in that division really has any big set of wins, so we can't talk about them. That leads us to welterweight. Now, the welterweight division is very special because it is loaded with talent and skill. And there are one or two, I would say, pretty experienced fighters in that division. We have Manny Pacquiao, which must be mentioned in that division, extremely experienced and just a rich lore of really, really high-level competition. Then we have Sean Porter, who's many levels below him, but he's also faced his fair share of really good competition. And then we have Terrence Crawford, who has had his really good share of reasonably good competition, not great competition, but reasonably good competition, and the multiple weight class world champion. So that's big there. When you look at the super lightweight, there's really no one in the top spheres right now who have been long reigning. So that's a new and evolving division as well. Then you have Vasily Lomachenko. Now, he doesn't have a wealth of fights, but we have to note him because he's got just a few fights, but the level of competition he's faced in those few fights, you have to mention him. Mikey Garcia is another world champion, multi-divisional world champion who has faced one or two speckled notable names, which we must put in that equation. But again, the rest of the division is, again, a division which sparse people. Miguel Bercehlt has emerged out of there. He blistered some really good names like Francisco Vargas. But again, this division is still an evolving division, and so we have to pay attention to it. Tevin Farmer probably being the most experienced of that division. And then we have Leo Santa Cruz. Leo Santa Cruz has some remarkable competition in the featherweight division, so we have to mention him as well. And then in the super bantamweight division, these are all evolving people. In the bantamweight division, we also have a lot of evolving people. It's a very exciting round-robin competition that's going on there. In the super flyweight division, we have some interesting people there. But once again, we have Wiskansil Waniak, who's actually done quite a lot. He's a pretty long reigning champion. But again, the level of competition, just because this guy's so small, it's kind of hard to really. I know there was Chocolito at a certain point in time. Now, Wanyang Menyanothin has some really enormous experience here, and he's a long reigning champion as well. Well, longest reigning champion, but at the same time, again, it's kind of technical to put him into that sphere, pound for pound, mainly because it's not many, how do I say, many people his size in his division. And so it's kind of like a round robin thing that's going on there. Right. And then the light flyweight, you have Ken Shiro, who's new. And we have some new people in flyweight as well. Now, I just went through all of that just to say this. Let me show you what I mean. When we look at who's the best boxer pound for pound in the world today, you have to kind of consider all of these different variables. So, like for instance, when we look at Daniel Jacobs, this guy has fought a wealth of really good fighters. Sergey Derevchenko, he got a split decision win over him. It was a really good fight, really close, really good fight. Okay, he lost to Gennady Golovkin, but again, Gennady Golovkin is a very good fighter. He fought a number of undefeated fighters as well, like as you can see, Masih Sukali, Luis Arias. He also fought at middleweight Sergio Mora, who moved up to middleweight to face him. You know, he also fought Peter Quillen. He also fought Caleb Truax, who is now at super middleweight. And he also fought Dmitry Pirog. Now, all of these guys, at some point, or at least Dmitry Pirog became world champions. Dmitry Pirog became world champion. He also faced Ishe Smith, who was former junior middleweight world champion. So he's fought a good share of really quality fighters. Ishe Smith, Dmitry Pirog. You have Sergio Mora, Peter Quillen, okay, Gennady Golovkin, and some will argue he beat Gennady Golovkin. And then he's fought undefeated fighters like Luis Arias, and of course, recently he fought Sergey Derevchenko, who's you're going to see him in the future, very good fighter. Now, so Danny Jacobs has his fair share of good, solid opposition that he's faced. The best, of course, being Gennady Golovkin and Dmitry Pirog. That's the best competition. His best win against Peter Quillen, who was a world champion at the time. So these are the marquee names that he really beat, and well-known and marquee names that he beat, right? When we're talking about Canelo Alvarez, I think in terms of competition, I don't think there's anybody who's had that kind of level of competition that Saul Canelo Alvarez has had. He's facing the WBA regular super middleweight champion in Rocky Fielding. This is not, I would wish he would have faced Callum Smith instead of Rocky Fielding, but it is what it is. So he's facing Rocky Fielding, who's a super middleweight champion at full-fledged 168. Should be an interesting fight. We'll see how that turns out. But at the end of the day, this is one world champion. It's a world champion that just recently became a world champion, so that's another thing. But he's facing a world champion, okay? He's faced Gennady Golovkin twice. Gennady Golovkin was the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world, according to ESPN, according to Ring Magazine at a certain point in time. So at the time he beat Gennady Golovkin, he was the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and you have to bear that in mind. Then he also faced Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who was a former world champion. He faced Leon Smith, who was a world champion at super welterweight. So he jumped down to super welterweight, went up to super middleweight, then came back down to middleweight. Okay. He then faced Amir Khan as well. This is not a name I really count because Amir Khan was really a welterweight that jumped up to face him. So that's not a big deal. Miguel Cotto, on the other hand, that's a name. And Miguel Cotto was the middleweight champion of the world, just put away another guy who was a former world champion at middleweight. And they fought really basically at a small middleweight, the lower end of the middleweight scale. But nonetheless, it was a very good fight. And some argued Miguel Cotto outboxed him, and some will argue that Canelo outboxed Miguel Cotto. But either way, it was a good fight, and Canelo always wanted to face Cotto, and he became the lineal middleweight champion of the world. That's how Canelo became the lineal middleweight champion against Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto's ridiculous record, right? Four divisional world champion. I mean, he's just glittered in gold. Okay, the most division world winning champion of Puerto Rico, and so on and so on. Class act and all that. He also faced Erislandy Lara, got a split decision win over him. When Erislandy Lara was the #1 super welterweight champion of the world. He was actually the super WBA super champion, I believe it was, at the time. He also faced Floyd Mayweather, who outclassed him. But again, he faced the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He lost to him, but he got a lot of experience with that. And of course, he also faced the undefeated Austin Trout, who had just beaten Miguel Cotto. Not to mention, he also faced Shane Mosley, was a former world champion. Kermit Cintron was a former world champion. Alfonso Gomez, Matthew Hatton, Love Moendu, Carlos Manuel Baldomir was a former world champion. And so that kind of experience, and also the tough, I mentioned him in the last video, Leonardo Tyner, who was also an exceptionally good boxer and just recently won at the age of 43. This guy is still winning fights. Okay, really well-schooled boxer. So when you look at that kind of resume, he also faced Miguel Vasquez, who was the lightweight world champion for a long-reigning lightweight world champion. So it's that kind of pedigree that Canelo brings to the table. He brings a number of world champions that he has beaten. And then, of course, the cream of the crop, the best of the best, was Gennady Golovkin, Miguel Cotto, and Floyd Mayweather. That's the best of the best in that whole lineup. You also can throw in Erislandy Lara if you want. And I don't think there's anybody who's faced that level of competition right now in the world today, except for one fighter. That fighter doesn't even have the record of Canelo Alvarez, and that would be Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. And Manny Pacquiao, you have to mention Manny Pacquiao, even though he hasn't been winning in his winning ways, he's kind of been losing of late. He lost to Jeff Horn. He lost to Floyd Mayweather Jr. He lost to Juan Manuel Marquez and Timothy Bradley Jr. But you can look at his wins. He beat Lucas Matisse just recently. He wasn't, it was for a world title, and he's now the WBA World Welterweight Champion. You have to consider that. He lost to Jeff Horn, beat Jesse Vargas. He lost to Floyd Mayweather, beat Timothy Bradley twice, beat world champion Chris Algieri, but they carried him up to welterweight to do that. He also beat former world champion Brandon Rios. He beat Juan Manuel Marquez, I think it was twice or something like that. He beat Shane Mosley. He beat Antonio Margarito. These are all former world champions. Jasper Clottey, Miguel Cotto, Ricky Hatton, Oscar De La Hoya, David Diaz, Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales. So, the list just goes on and on and on. So Manny Pacquiao, drew with Agapito Sanchez. These are remarkable names. So I think the only person with a deeper resume who's still existing, and he is a veteran of the sport, and he's basically one of those what we call relics from the past that's still kind of hanging around in boxing, almost 40 years old, Manny Pacquiao. And he'll be 40 on the 17th of December. So we're looking at a 40-year-old relic that's still in boxing. That's the only guy with a deeper resume than Canelo. And you talked about the current, and he's just kind of a relic hanging around. And if he can get back to his winning ways, we could talk about him being in the pound-for-pound #1 status. But as present, he's still now kind of rebounding back to his winning ways. Canelo, on the other hand, has been winning for quite a while. And the whole point behind it is, this is the only other guy with a deeper resume than Canelo currently in the world today. And this is a veteran, okay? So when we look at Shawn Porter, you can't ignore Shawn Porter when you talk about pound for pound. I'll give you a reason why. When you look at the level of competition this guy has faced within his last couple of fights, you're talking about he faced former world champion Devin Alexander, beat him to get the IBF world title. He then beat former world champion Julio Diaz. He also beat he lost to the world champion Kell Brook. He lost his title to Kell Brook. He beat former world champion Paulie Malignaggi, okay, weak champion, but still. Beat Adrian Broner, who was a 5-time 5-divisional world champion. He fought Keith Thurman, who is, the man at present. Then he beat Andre Berto, who was a former world champion. And then he beat Danny Garcia, who's a highly decorated world champion and former world champion. So when you look at just those stats, Shawn Porter has in his very short career done quite a lot. And what's the biggest win for him? The biggest win for him, I guess, would be Adrian Broner. It's a toss-up between, I think, Adrian Broner and Paulie Malignaggi. Okay. But he's fought some solid competition. But again, not on the level of a Canelo Alvarez. And these are important things. It's not just that you beat in sensational fashion, but it's who you beat and what level of competition you're facing. That's always very important, right? You took Terrence Crawford. I mean, I understand why people would say he's pound for pound number one, because you're looking at his skill set, you're looking at his intelligence. But then again, anybody can look really good against a certain level of competition. And then as the level of competition get higher and higher, then we really see how true it is. Now, he's faced uh, B-level competition for the most part. Jose Benavidez, very inexperienced fighter when it comes to the championship level. He was a contender. And the Benavidez brothers are known as terrific brothers and skilled and all of that. But at the end of the day, this guy didn't have the experience behind him. So when he beat Jose Benavidez, fantastic name, great upcoming fighter, you know, contemporary and all that. Really great win for him. And you can't put that on the level of Amigo Cotto, or on the level of a Floyd Mayweather, or on the level of a Gennady Golovkin. You just don't do that. When you look at Jeff Horn just became world champion, just like Victor Postol just became world champion. Fantastic world champion, but just not on the level of a Manny Pacquiao, or a Sean Porter, or Kell Brook, or Errol Spence, or Keith Thurman, or Danny. You just don't put these guys on the same level. You understand what I'm saying? Julius Ndongo, again, just recently became world champion. Defended, I think, once or twice. I think unified. Well, beautiful unification, but you just don't put him on the same level of the competition that he's now facing at welterweight. Felix Diaz, very skilled fighter, very good fighter. You know, gave the guy that Errol Spence just totaled recently, I forgot what his name is, from Washington, D.C., he gave that guy a really tough run. But Terence Crawford kind of dusted him, right? But you can't put him in the same category, Felix Diaz in the same category as a guy like Danny Garcia, etc. You get my point. So, he's faced some really good competition, like I said before. But at the end of the day, there's no one that I can say, besides the Yuriorkis Gamboa and Ricky Burns, who have a good history of winning and stuff. Most of these guys are inexperienced. And most of these guys weren't world champions, or they just recently became world champions. And so you can't lump Terence Crawford and say he's the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. You can't say that just blatantly like that. You have to put him up against some of the better competition he's in his division at present to be able to say that. Or if Terence Crawford came in to the division and then beat the best, guy that they thought was in the division, like Errol Spence, they think he's the best guy in the division, even though he's not. Then you could really make a statement like that. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at things. So I don't think that Terence Crawford is the best pound-for-pound fighter. Now, Vasily Lomachenko, for what he's doing so far and the amount of fights he has, he's got a steep learning curve, and he's doing really well. But that doesn't make him the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Now, when he beat Guillermo Rigondeaux, I really had to say you got to put him up there in the pound-for-pound rankings, but you can't say he's the best. Guillermo Rigondeaux is a highly decorated, really good competition. Him and Jorge Linares, as well as Orlando Salido. These are top level. When you're talking about the particular divisions they were in, featherweight, super featherweight, lightweight, Linares, Rigondeaux, and Salido are the best you would get. Okay, and so him beating those guys was just huge. Also, I looked at how people would struggle with certain competition, like Nicholas Walters with Miguel Mariaga, and Lomachenko had no problem with them. He also beat some other world champions, such as Walters and Rocky Martinez, right? So now Roman Martinez is a weak world champion, but it's okay. But Rigondeaux was really a great scalp, and Jorge Linares, and his best competition to date is Jorge Linares and Guillermo Rigondeaux, and those are really prime, lineal champion, the best of their division, the boogeyman of the division. So that was exceptionally wonderful. However, though Lomachenko has done all of that, he's still yet to prove himself. What do I mean by that? And you're probably wondering what is he saying? What I mean by that is Lomachenko is still yet to face a competition that really is really good competition. I'm not saying that, for instance, Linares is not good competition. He's proven that. I'm not saying Rigondeaux is not good competition. I just think he was too small. I'm not saying Salido is not good competition, because Salido gave him hell and beat him. No, I'm saying that competition that he has in his division right now, in lightweight right now, there's a guy called Mikey Garcia. Lomachenko should try to beat that guy, because that guy is different. Mikey Garcia is a divisional world champion. Neither Rigondeaux nor Jorge Linares, nor Orlando Salido, nor Nicholas Walters, nor Roman Martinez can say that. Now, Lomachenko can say that, but not they. And I think for him to really show that he's really good, and to even compare with Canelo in any kind of way, shape, or form, or even have somebody in his competition that's even on the level of Canelo, as much as he has a steep learning curve, he will have to face someone like that. And the person that I can think of that he would have to face would be Mikey Garcia. It so happens Mikey Garcia is facing Errol Spence Jr. If Mikey beats Errol Spence Jr. and Mikey comes down to lightweight, I can guarantee you he will beat the brakes off of Vasily Lomachenko, because he will walk through Lomachenko. He will not have any respect for Lomachenko, because he would have handled much greater punching power, a much bigger guy, and he will know how to walk down a smaller fighter, because Mikey knows how to cut off the ring. So I wouldn't want Vasily Lomachenko facing Mikey Garcia. I would keep Vasily Lomachenko as far away from Mikey Garcia as I possibly could. Mikey Garcia is a big. If he goes down to lightweight, he would be huge lightweight, and it'd be nothing. What's Lomachenko going to do to box him? How's he going to outbox Mikey? Because Mikey knows how to maintain range. Okay, so. And Lomachenko got dropped by Jorge Linares, who is not on the level of a Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is a much better fighter than Jorge Linares. Has a much better chin and everything like that. So I would prefer if Lomachenko just stays with guys like Pedraza and so on, and you know, former world champion and stuff, or current world champion, and unify and do that stuff. I would keep him away from Mikey Garcia. Okay. Mikey Garcia has already shown how big and strong he is, and I just wouldn't want Lomachenko messing around with Mikey. And Mikey is an interesting guy. He's doing something that is amazing. He's going way down in weight class, and he's going way up in weight class. He's doing something that Hector Camacho used to do. Very legendary what Mikey's trying to do, and I'm just in awe of him, and I'm really appreciative of what Mikey Garcia is doing. So I would love to see him face Errol Spence Jr., which I think is a bigger challenge than Vasily Lomachenko anyway. And Lomachenko is an in-and-out style, kind of like Pacquiao, and he's a little bit more well-schooled, and he tries to keep range on the outside, but as you can clearly see, you can set him up to get counterpunched because he's vulnerable as he's coming in. A lot of what Lomachenko does is based on his timing. If you can time Lomachenko, on the other hand, and you're not as predictable as other boxers are, you're going to catch him coming in. I even saw Rigondeaux catch him coming in. But just Rigondeaux didn't have the power to really mess him up, but he caught him coming in. So, and I've even seen Gary Russell Jr. catch him coming in as well. So what I'm basically saying is Lomachenko has a style that's kind of predictable. And once you kind of don't get overwhelmed with his activity and you have your defense on point, you can start to time him, because he doesn't change particularly his rhythm. He doesn't change his rhythm. He changes his placement. He doesn't change his rhythm. But anyway, that's another story for another day. So Lomachenko, he's up the pound for pound rankings, but I don't think he's the pound for pound #1 in the world. He doesn't challenge Canelo. Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia has just beaten Robert Easter Jr., an undefeated fighter, but again, a fighter who has had some defenses, but he's still young in the game. He also beat Sergey Lipnis to become the IBF World Super Lightweight Champion. He also beat Adrian Broner to become the WBC Super Lightweight Champion. He also beat Dejan Zlatican to become the WBC Lightweight Champion. He's also beaten Juan Manuel Lopez to become the WBO World Featherweight Champion. So he is the featherweight, super featherweight, lightweight, super lightweight champion. He has 4 division He's a 4-divisional world champion, and he's going for his 5th division, going to face the very best of the 5th division. By the way, he's also beaten Orlando Salido. Now, his best win to date, though, is Adrian Broner. Orlando Salido is also a good win. These are the 2 highly decorated guys there. Everybody else is not so much. Roman Martinez is kind of spotty, so I wouldn't include him. So in short, even Mikey Garcia, as much as he's gone through multiple divisions and all of that, his best wins are really Adrian Broner and Orlando Salido. All right, that's basically it. So none of these guys challenge Canelo Alvarez when it comes to the level of competition. And it doesn't matter how much your skill sets and how skilled you are and how much you have will and all of that other ingredients, until you show us through level of competition how good you really are, we can't put you way up there in the pound for pound #1 spot. And that's, I think, what a lot of people get caught up in, sensationalism, how good a fighter is looking against another opponent. But you have to rate, am I at B level? Am I at C level? Am I at A level? Am I at legendary level? Because the legendary fighters you can face, some of them at the end of the game, some of them at the prime of their game, some of them at the beginning of their game. So you have to look at all of these factors when you're talking about pound for pound best fighter in the world today. So that's a long answer, my friend, to the question. Leo Santa Cruz really has proven himself. I mean, this guy has beaten Abner Mares. He's beaten Chris Avalos. Forget Chris Avalos. He's beaten Carl Frampton and, avenge his loss. He has beaten Abner Mares twice, which is really good. Yeah, he's beaten old world champions like Christian Mijares, who's very old, nonetheless. Still something to mention. So his resume also looks pretty good. He's proven himself. Abner Mares is a multiple weight divisional world champion. Leo Santa Cruz is also a multiple weight divisional champion. And he's beaten some of the best names in the division, like Abner Mares, Cal Frampton, and I think that's about it. Cal Frampton and Abner Mares. Okay, so he's kind of made his name that way. Not on the level of Canelo or almost most of the other guys, but he still made his, and he showed that he has some skill. Now, when we talk skill-wise, I think you have to look at styles make fights. So you have to look at the style, and then you have to look at how effective that style is against different styles. So that's what you do. So you can look at all these guys and do it. I always feel like the level of competition is so important, because no matter how much you say you're skilled or whatever, you have to see how it pairs up to the upper echelon of opponent. The best in your division or the best in the world, to really say, because as the higher up you go in boxing, is the more people have a lot more abilities. They have really adapted their styles. They've seen a lot of styles. They know how to be effective against a number of different styles of boxing. And also they have a lot more better IQ. They're smarter boxers. They're not going to fall for certain things. They're not going to make certain mistakes. And they're sharper, and they're tighter in what they do. And they're very effective in what they do. So when you look at, if a champion is facing a champion, that's one thing. But when you're talking about a champion against an experienced champion who is still somewhere between his prime and the end of his career, a veteran, or he's a veteran prime boxer, that's a totally different story. Because these people learn so much in boxing. So that's why I said, when you're looking at, you have to look at experience. And so at the end of the day, I don't think there's any other boxer besides Manny Pacquiao that's better than Canelo Alvarez in terms of that. Pacquiao has a lot of experience. And so it wouldn't be surprising if he becomes pound for pound #1 fighter in the world, if he can just amass that experience and somehow adapt himself. It's going to be hard for Pacquiao. He's what he is, but sort of adapt himself somewhat to the other styles that are there. But when you look at the welterweight division, it's really evenly matched, as Danny Garcia said. It's pretty evenly matched. Danny Garcia can stand up to almost anybody in that division and give them hell. Keith Thurman has the skills and abilities to do that. Sean Porter's a terror in that division. I don't care what you say. Errol Spence versus Sean Porter will be a hell of a fight, because Sean Porter can take punches, and Errol Spence don't got the power to just knock him out in one shot. That ain't happening. Terrence Crawford's in that mix, and he's got a lot of skills, ability, switch hitter, that kind of thing. So that would be fun to see him mix it up with those big boys. Because I'm telling you right now, he ain't faced nobody like those guys. You got Keith Thurman, you got Sean Porter, you got Terrence Crawford, you got Manny Pacquiao, you got Errol Spence, you got Danny Garcia, you got you know, the other guys like Jesse Vargas and all those other guys. So it's really fun packed division with a lot of potential. And so you're looking at a really good division, and it's hard for somebody to separate themselves from everybody else in that division easily. They really are well matched, and it makes for exciting fights. So, in short, my friend, what I'm saying to you is that when you're talking about pound for pound or the best boxer in the world today, I will have to say that that goes to Canelo. I think Canelo is the best boxer in the world today. That's my personal opinion. I know not many people like Canelo or love Canelo, so I understand why certain people would feel the way they do. But I honestly think, and then he came up dirty on one of the drug tests, the VADA drug test. So whether he was dirty or not, or intentionally dirty or not, is another story. But at the end of the day, he's the best thing out there right now. And he's not only the pound for pound best fighter in the world, he's also the cash cow of boxing right now. He is boxing, and that makes sense. So that's just what it is. Canelo is the best boxer in the world right now. I don't think the ring has acknowledged him as that. I think they acknowledge Terrence Crawford. And I think ESPN also acknowledges Terrence Crawford. I don't understand how that is possible, but if you ask me who's the best pound for pound boxer in the world, I believe it's Canelo Alvarez. And he's just proving it time and time again. Yeah, he's the dude. And he has a lot of options. Troy Ingram says, who is overrated in boxing today? Who's overrated in boxing today? There are a lot of people who've been overhyped in boxing, unfortunately. You know, everybody was saying that, you know, Gennady Golovkin is this monster. And we now know he's not a monster. Okay. As soon as the level of competition went up, he wasn't getting those knockouts that everybody was expecting him to have and just mowing over people, you know, and, you know, big drama show. So I think he was overrated. Another overrated boxer was Sergey Kovalev. Overrated boxer. He was called a crusher, and that was the whole thing. And when he got crushed, that was it. He became a mouse. So that's, I think, Troy on that. Another person who I thought is overrated in boxing today, they're just kind of really overhyping the people. But mind you, just getting into the ring and fighting is huge. Okay, there are lots of boxers out there. But, you know, there's a lot of people overrate certain people. They just, I don't know why, but they overrate certain fighters. And other fighters are underrated, you know, and they get all this negative flack. But let me see. Who's another overrated boxer in the world today? Overrated. Let me have a look for a second. I'll tell you. Okay. I think this boxer is yet to prove himself. I think of him as overrated. Okay. Now, don't take this the wrong way, but because he was a fantastic amateur. So don't take this the wrong way. Overrated boxer. Some people are going to be mad at me when I say this, because the guy he had it pretty tough to start with. So this is my bed in the background. I don't know if I should say his name. I think I'll leave him alone. I'll leave him alone. Let him do his thing. Let's see where he goes with it. Let's see where he goes with it. Because a lot of people rate that particular boxer very highly, and I don't see him that highly. I'm gonna leave him alone. I was gonna call his name, but I'm gonna leave him alone. He's at middleweight. Go ahead and figure out who I'm talking about. Another overrated boxer I see here, because he's not really a boxer, is David Lemieux. David Lemieux is overrated. He's not really a boxer. He's a slugger. Oh yes, there's another boxer who I think is highly overrated. He's a heavyweight boxer, and for some reason, people really, really like him. All right, let me see if I can get his name here. Let me get him. Dominic Bercehlt. I think Dominic Bercehlt is one of the most overrated boxers in the world today. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think he's overrated. And they really push him. But I think he's an overrated boxer. Who else do I think is an overrated boxer in the world today? Amir Khan. I think Amir Khan is an overrated boxer in the world today. I think Amir Khan is not even remotely interested in facing anybody at welterweight. I don't even know what weight class he's at. I think he's still at welterweight. He's an overrated boxer now. He's ducking everybody. You know, he's looking to cash out. That's what Amir Khan's trying to do. He's trying to just look good enough to cash out. So I think he's an overrated boxer in the world today. You know, he has he's really fast and quick, and he can get guys to get flash knockdowns. He can get flash knockdowns on people. But I think he's an overrated boxer in the world today. Yeah. I might as well say Demetrius Andrade. I think Demetrius Andrade is overrated. I think a lot of people say, he's highly skilled and so on. Now, don't get me wrong. He's helped a lot of people in boxing. I think he's more like an Amir Khan. I think he's quick. He has fast hands. When it comes to the actual inner workings of boxing, I think he's overrated. I think he's a one-trick pony. I look for certain things when I'm watching a boxer box, and he does some of them, but he doesn't do the whole 9 yards. And he definitely doesn't pace himself properly. He works at a high pace, a high rate. He does some things interesting, but he's a one-trick pony, I think. So he does not impress me. He's pretty sharp, though. He's sharp. But he still doesn't impress me. Another overrated person in boxing, I think, is Chris Eubank Jr. I think Chris Eubank Jr. is exciting and all of that, but he's overrated. So that's another overrated boxer, I think, in boxing. Again, no disrespect to Chris Eubank Jr. I just think that the hype is greater than he actually is. Okay. And I actually think that Billy Joe Saunders is a better boxer than Gennady Golovkin. I think that Erickson Lubin is an overrated boxer. Tony Harrison's overrated. You guys are gonna be shocked. Like, Tony Harrison's overrated. I'm like, yes. but he's trying to do some good things for people in the sport of boxing. So I think he's overrated. In the welterweight division, well, obviously, Terrence Crawford, I think, is just a tad overrated. Everybody's crowning him pound for pound #1 without him really facing anybody of note. I think he's overrated in that respect. Not everybody's going to agree with me, but that's what I think. There are some of the overrated boxers I know about. Yeah. Yep. I think Tevin Farmer is an overrated boxer as well. He's got some experience and everything, but I think he's overrated. Yeah, those are some of the names of overrated boxers I think are overrated. Troy Ingram says, Canelo for me might be pound for pound. I think so. I think he's pound for pound #1 in the world. I don't think they want to give him that, but I think he is. Troy Ingram says, is it Charlo at middleweight? There is a Charlo at middleweight. I think Jamal is at middleweight, and I think Jamel is at super welterweight. Jamel is going to be facing a Detroit fighter. I think I just mentioned him. Tony Harrison. So Jamel is going to be facing Tony Harrison, and I believe Jamal Charlo is going to be facing Willie Monroe Jr. I think Willie Monroe Jr. is an overrated boxer. So it is what it is. He's good, though. He's good. Don't get me wrong, but he's not an A-level boxer. No. I think they're just putting Willie Monroe in there to see, to give Jamal Charlo some work. It'd be nice if Willie Monroe could win. That would be show that he has some quality in his boxing. He's southpaw, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, Willie Monroe isn't that, he's trying. Let's put it that way. He's trying. So yeah, Jamal Charlo is at middleweight. I get them mixed up, the twins. Yep. Again, Jamal Charlo is still learning on the job, as well as Jamel Charlo. They're still learning. They're young. Jamel looks like he wants to face Jarrett Hurd. Jarrett Hurd is a huge super welterweight. He's a huge guy. So Jarrett Hurd could really, if he gets going on Jamel Charlo, I mean, it's curtains for Jamel Charlo. So, but let's see what kind of skills Jamel Charlo will have to face off against Jarrett Hurd. He's young as well. Erislandy Lara stood toe-to-toe with Jarrett Hurd for most of the fight. He's moving a bit. And he got dropped. He got his face busted up, and then he got dropped. Yeah, you get mixed up. You get the Charlo twins mixed up. That's cool. That's all right. That's all right, man. Well, it's good, Troy Ingram, that you came through, man. It's good that you came through. If there are other people who want to chat in the chat section, let me know. But to me, be honest with you guys again, for me, it's all about the Christian walk, like I said before. I see there's some more viewers. Shout out to you guys. Please, if you're out there, throw in your comments. Throw in something, man. Say hello. Tell me what you thought about how the fights went, etc. But for me, again, like I said before, you can't rule out anybody in boxing. You can't rule out anybody. But you asked me some specific questions, so I gave you some specific answers about who I thought was the best boxer in the world today, who I thought was most overrated. And so there you go. Yeah, I mean, the best of something, I always believe, you don't have to defend it. It can defend its own self. Its own record will show how good it is. It's like you don't have to defend God. God's record shows it all, you know. So if you guys don't have any other questions, I'll be out of here, and wish you guys a good day. But like I said here, I thought it was just inspirational how Miguel Roman conducted himself, how Nolito Donaire conducted himself. It's good to be classy in a sport, you know, even if sport's violent, to be able to be classy at the end of that sport. I like that boxing's not such a violent sport that people get broken arms or busted up faces or cut up faces, that kind of stuff. You know, that's the nice thing about boxing. It's just your two hands. Doesn't mean you can't kill somebody, but you know, that's why the rules came into play. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a blessed one. Peace. Got any more questions though? Just leave them in the comment section if you couldn't get to this video. But please say hello, you know. I'm also taking donations because I can't get to work because I'm basically home taking care of my mom. I use these videos, so if you want to donate to my channel, that's also cool. To donate to my channel, simply leave your comments down below that you want to do so, and I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. All right. So you guys have a good one. Christmas is in the air. It's November the 4th. The year is almost done. 2018 is almost over, folks. Anybody got any really interesting questions about boxing? Maybe you want to ask me a question about boxing or something that happened in boxing. Troy Ingram, before you go, anything interesting you want to say about boxing or ask about boxing? Come on. It's all right, man. I'm enjoying this discussion a little bit. A little sleepy, but I like, and I am enjoying your company. I got 3 likes and 1 dislike. Somebody disliked my video. Wow. Like, really? Anybody else has anything else they want to talk about? There's a lot of fights that happened over the weekend, by the way. You know who else? Oh, man. This is going to sound terrible. It'll sound like I'm a hater, but she's still developing. But Clarissa Shields, you know, I've been watching her last set of fights, and there's all this hype around her. And I just don't see it sometimes when she's fighting. I just don't see it, you know. She looks busy and everything, but like you know, Andrew Wood was showing her, you know, you gotta mix it up. You know, you can't just be so predictable. And everything's offense, offense, offense. You gotta think defense and offense. You know, you gotta get varied. You gotta get, you know, you gotta get into the sweet science, you know, a little bit more. So I find she's a bit overrated based on how people hype her up like that. She is good, don't get me wrong, for women's boxing. It's just, don't overhype her like that, you know. Let her take her time and build herself. All right, let me show you guys a couple of things. Even Errol Spence is a little overhyped, unfortunately, for Errol. Errol takes it cool, but, you know, everybody's like, you know, he's the boogeyman of the division and all that. He ain't no boogeyman, man. He's big, he's strong, he's technically sound. We get to see more from him, but he's not a boogeyman. And I'm glad Mikey Garcia stepped into him and decided to take him on. Show everybody he's not a boogeyman. So I know Mikey Garcia will make it to the finish line with him. I don't know if Mikey Garcia might win the fight because we don't know what Errol Spence can do. Mikey Garcia will surely take it to the finish line with him. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, I'm kind of half sleeping on myself. So we got different fighters talking about predictions for different fights, like Luke Campbell talking on Canelo versus Rocky Fielding, and White versus Chisora 2. White talking about he would KO Chisora. Yeah, right. Eddie Hearn talks about if Fury beats Wilder, rematch eliminates both for Joshua. Jamal Charlo talks about a lot of fighters have trouble getting past my jab. Danny Garcia wants winner of Pacquiao versus Broner fight. Huh. Sounds interesting. Just Taylor says, I don't think there's anybody that can stop me. It's after he won his fight. No Nisha Donaire, a win is a win. Age is nothing but a number. Miguel Mario says, I want to challenge for another world title. Derek Chisholm, White, agree. Fury in too deep with Deontay Wilder. So Derek Chisholm and Dillian White, they think that Deontay Wilder's going to mop the floor with Fury. I just don't see it. Hearn, we still need a Mikey Garcia or a Charlo for Diaz. For DSN or the zone. Khabib's manager says Mayweather is almost 60. He wants relevance. Sullivan Barrera, I'm ready for everyone. I proved him. I proved I'm tough. I think Barrera won his last fight. Videa, who got stopped, trainers talking about he could rebuild his career. Miguel Bercehlt says that was my toughest world title defense. Yeah, sure, the guy kept on coming, and he was not going to be stopped by him. Sullivan Barrera boxes past Sini Mungahan for a decision win. Yep. Oh yeah, Josh Taylor stopped Ryan Martin. Yeah, he did stop Ryan Martin. 7th round. That's true. Didn't get to see that fight yet. You guys saw that one? People are calling Burnett injured. The truth be told, Donaire was doing good body work, man. Doing good body work. There's a daily bread mailbag on fightscene.com. A lot of people want to see Jacobs face Charlo. And, there's a lot to and fro going between the Charlo camp and the Jacobs camp. And here's some of what they say. In a daily bread mailbag, Stephen Breadman Edwards tackles a variety of topics. Hey, once again, Howie from New Jersey. Hey, once again, major props to your knowledge of boxing you post, which I find myself looking forward to Saturday so I can read. It was unbelievable. Checking out that guy about the greatest and tough schedule Manny Pacquiao has faced was great. In fact, you let everyone know that Ray Leonard beat Marvin Hagler. I was at the fight, and everyone, including Hagler, knew it was Leonard's fight. Leonard's night. Facts. As great as Marvin was, he has coned the public into believing he won the fight when he knew he himself lost. Many have ever seen Marvin Hagler dance in the ring after a fight he knew. One quick question. I'm giving Fury a big chance against Wilder. I think he'll outbox him. What are your thoughts? Once again, keep up the great work, Howie, from New Jersey. Yes, people who go out of their way to distract fighters are straight up jealous. It's one thing to not like a fighter. It's something different to go out of your way to insult a fighter. I try not to even make fun or say derogatory things publicly about fighters unless a fighter is caught cheating. I didn't appreciate Hagler as much as when I was younger as I do now. I looked at his pre-title run and I simply couldn't believe how hard he had it for an American fighter. Even by the era standards, his pre-title run was insane. Willie Monroe 3 times, Bobby Watts 2 times, Cyclone Hart, Benny Briscoe was a very good boxer, and Olympian Sugar Ray Seals 3 times. That's 10 killer fights before he even won his title. And each fighter was from a hotbed of talent. Philadelphia and that Seattle area used to produce some heat. Hagler's pre-title run was so good, After I properly assessed it, I put him number 3 all-time behind Robinson and Krebs. Where before it was common to have Monzon in the all-time 3 spot at 160. After looking at what Hagler did, I couldn't deny his resume was slightly better than Monzon's. But you're correct. Hagler has conned the public into thinking it was a conspiracy against him that he lost. He makes it seem as if Ray Leonard invented 12-round fights. By 1987, most of the championship fights were 12-round instead of 15. The IBF had held out a bit longer than the WBC and WBA, but the interesting thing is that Hagler fought Juan Roldan, Thomas Hearns, and John Mugabe in 12-round fights before Leonard. But you will hear people lie and say that Leonard was Hagler's first 12-round fight. It's totally false, and if you don't believe me, check BoxRec and see what the aforementioned fights were scheduled for. Hagler acted as if he was forced to concede so much. The 12-round myth is just not true. The glove size things are not true. Leonard asked for the same size glove that Hagler always fought in. The difference was the thumbs were attached. Let someone who hates Hagler tell it. Like middleweights weren't fighting in 10-ounce gloves before Hagler versus Leonard. The only thing Hagler conceded that could have cost him was ring size. But Leonard was a superstar. What superstar won't negotiate to their favor? The ring was legal. It was just big. What Hagler and his fans won't talk about is Hagler made way more money. He got to collect off of more states in the closed circuit market than Leonard. Some report that Hagler walked away with $25 million in the end. That's $54 million today in 2018 on the inflation calendar. Leonard made about half that, and he was an icon. So the next time someone tells you Hagler just got jobbed at the negotiation table, tell them what I told you. The fact is Hagler is getting older, and he wanted his huge payday. He wanted his severance pay from boxing, so he sacrificed ring size for money. The 12-round thing, he could never have won because he fought 3 of his recent championship fights in 12-rounders, so there's no way he could have publicly negotiated for 15 and people side with him. Hagler thought he would blow through the inactive smaller Leonard, and it just didn't happen that way. Hagler not only danced after the fight to display a false sense of assurance, but he made the ridiculous claim that Leonard never hurt him. You don't have to hurt a fighter to outpoint him. Hagler and Leonard were fighting for the best fighter of the 80s, and Leonard won. It's simple. I give Fury a great shot. He can box his butt off, and he's super confident. Okay.
Thanks for responding to my question. Andrew Ward versus light heavyweights in your last middleweight. You already answered Andrew Ward versus super middleweights in the early middleweight to someone. I like Ward because he's a true boxer puncher. He can box moving forward, swan while dancing circles. The latter is quite uncommon. He moved around the ring against Kovalev, but more often than not, whenever he engaged, he moved forward in a bent posture like swarmers and started infighting like swarmers. There's a gray area in every sport, and clinching is one such area in boxing. Outfighters like Floyd are generally defensive clinchers, and they clinch when cornered or hurt in order to avoid punishment. Then there are offensive clinchers like Greb, Duran, Sadler, and Ward. They punish their opponents and clinch, but use it to avoid punishment when they themselves are hurt. Offensive clinching is generally associated with swarmers, though there have been some notable outfighters were offensive clinchers. Boxers like Ward fall in both categories. 3 questions. Why are modern pressure fighters so easily neutralized by clinching? For example, Pacquiao versus Floyd. I do not think it would not have been a good idea for Floyd to clinch Duran. Hell, Duran used to proactively clinch his opponents and hit. If nothing else, modern swarmers can learn to avoid getting clinched. Pryor could use Dejon Johnson trying to clinch when he was pinned against ropes and would either parry his arms or push him back. Pacquiao could learn from this. Foreman could see Cowie moving forward in a slouch position that would push him in his preferred range. Kovalev would have used it against Ward to avoid getting clinched, though pressure fighters rarely clinch these days, except Porter. Why is clinch only used these days to neutralize their opponents when cornered, mostly outfighters, or when a boxer is hurt every boxer? Why aren't pressure fighters using it like Harry Crabb and Duran? 3. I know plenty of pressure fighters who love clinching opponents, but can you name some good pressure fighters who were great at avoiding getting clinched when they cornered their opponents, so like Pryor? Bird's response, man, you really know boxing, you have an eye. Oftentimes I wonder if Ward is underrated because he has only 32 fights, and you haven't seen him versus enough of the greats. All-around fighters like Ward don't get appreciated enough by the eyeball test. They need the results. For example, Hopkins is less appreciated than Trinidad until they fought. Same with Holyfield and Tyson. I wonder if we underappreciate Ward. As great as he is, he never was a huge underdog in a fight. Sometimes critics want to see fighters defy what looks like insurmountable odds. Oftentimes, people would pick a Tony, Jones, or Kawasaki to beat Ward because they were more visually pleasing. I may even be guilty of this. Maybe Ward is good enough to beat them all, and we can't see all of his talents. It's not impossible. Ward was special. Speaking of his style, Ward has a hybrid style. He's definitely an offensive clincher. I always looked at how Floyd fought Maidana and Pac-Man. Ward would have punched them both on the inside, whereas Floyd just tied them up, especially Maidana, who was working. You're the first person who ever wrote in who understands that there's a difference between offensive and defensive clinching. I will add to your list Ricky Hatton. He was a murderous offensive clincher. That's why Eastern Euro style of Costa Zoo couldn't handle him. The Zoo would always be troubled by Hatton at any point in his career. I just want to say, as I'm reading this, that a lot of times people talk about offensive clinchers and defensive clinchers, but these guys are not clinching. For instance, Ricky Hatton didn't clinch. I think people get it wrong. Ricky Hatton would get in close, and the opponent would hook Ricky Hatton's hand onto them. And though, since Ricky Hatton's not the one tying up the opponent, he has a free hand, he would work the free hand. So it's not an offensive clinch. It's that these guys would get in close and force the opponent to clinch them. It's just a reflex action where the opponent would clinch them. Floyd Mayweather, in facing Ricky Hatton, fought him on the inside and did a remarkable job with Ricky Hatton. Floyd is a superior boxer to Andre Ward. Andre Ward uses certain lines to get on the inside, uses his quickness to get on the inside. Floyd Mayweather will either draw you to him or he will use a jab or stab to the pit to slide to the inside. Or he may even feint you and then come to the inside. And Floyd slides to the inside. Andre Ward will scuttle to the inside. He'll bob and weave and scuttle to the inside. And Floyd on the inside doesn't clinch. If you guys are paying attention, you would see he uses his shoulder, his forearm, and he actually stays off to an angle of his opponent. And then you start landing shots. Because once you are to the weak side of your opponent or at a T angle, you can start landing off his shots. So Floyd actually doesn't clinch much on the inside. With Manny Pacquiao, Floyd caused Pacquiao to lock up on him. Floyd actually initialized the clinch, and then he would land punches on Pacquiao on the inside. And that's not offensive clinching. That's just sliding to the inside, having your opponent clinch you. A lot of times people was thinking it's Floyd clinching Pacquiao. There were certain times when he was clinching Pacquiao, getting him in headlocks, pivoting with him and carrying him another place. But other times it's Pacquiao that is forced to initiate the clinch by Floyd getting to the inside of Pacquiao. So it's all about range and getting into the range where your opponent's uncomfortable. That's all it's about. And however you do that. But anyway, let's go on with the mailbag. Modern fighters get neutralized by clinching because they don't realize there's more to infighting than punching. Mike Tyson was a great puncher and he had a great uppercut, but he was easy to clinch and neutralize. So is Manny Pacquiao. In fact, if Pacquiao was an offensive clincher on the level of Sadler or Duran, he would be the best pound-for-pound fighter ever. Seriously, no one realizes that Manny is a hyperactive out fighter with blazing hand speed. He's so short we assume he's an in-fighter, but he isn't. Right, now Manny Pacquiao is not an in-fighter, but he's not an out-fighter either. He's a mid-range fighter. So the guy's wrong. He's not an out-boxer. He has to get within your range. He's a mid-fighter. So he can land body punches, but he hardly lands body punches. He usually has headshots and uppercuts and stuff like that. And he's a busy fighter. Now, Duran and Sadler, they're in-fighters, just like how Jose Luis Castillo is an in-fighter. Castillo will get to your inside, and then he starts landing his shots. Castillo versus Floyd was a very interesting fight for that. Floyd generally would outbox an in-fighter because he doesn't want to be in the preferred range of the in-fighter. Why would I do that? Why would I give you that advantage? However, against guys like Zab Judah, he fought against Jose Luis Castillo, especially in the 10th round. There's a lot of infighting going on there. And Castillo is a clean infighter. So let me see. Who else did Floyd infight? Did a lot of infight. Another fighter is DeMarcus Corley. He fought on the inside against DeMarcus Corley. Besides Zab Judah, who he also cramped for space, and he fought on the inside. So, yeah. Anyway, Floyd, generally speaking, tries to control the action, tries to slow it down. And so that's how he does his thing, especially when he was older. His infighting was better than Manny Pacquiao, but his brain wasn't. Tyson started his programming attack after every clinch. Yes. Tyson also fought mid-range. Wasn't an inside fighter, really. But he landed a lot of body shots. Aaron Pryor, mid-range. A lot of body shots. Not really an in-fighter. Duran was an in-fighter. Duran liked to get on the inside, maul you, beat you up on the inside. A guy like Floyd, going against Duran, would have to have caught Duran to the body, still have to land body shots on Duran. The more body shots you can land on Duran, the better. I noticed that a lot of fighters, again, they go head hunting on these fighters. Yeah, Duran's head was there to be hit, but he had a hard head. So you'll find that guys like Thomas Hearns, who beat Duran, or even Sugar Ray Leonard, who beat Duran, they weren't head hunting Duran. Instead, they went to Duran's body. Stab to the pit was one of Sugar Ray Leonard's biggest weapons he was using, and they would feint to the pit, go to the head. So, that kind of thing. So, Duran could be held at bay if you jabbed him to death. While he had counters to the jab and he had setups for the jab, he didn't have setups for body jabs. He didn't have setups for body shots. And he wanted to pin you to the ropes. So he wanted to get you to the ropes and pin you there. And if you had certain pivots, you could circle away from Duran. And Duran wanted to cramp you for space. I think another person who was doing that and wearing down his opponents on the inside, if I'm not mistaken, I was watching that fight, was a fight between a guy called Julian Williams. No, not Julian Williams. Something Williams. and a long guy. And I didn't believe the long guy actually ended up winning the fight by split decision. I don't even know how that happened. But, yeah. So, yeah, Harry Swarmers. So, Aaron Pryor, Harry Kreb, Roberto Duran. Aaron Pryor is not really a swarmer like that. He's more of a mid-range fighter, but that's another story for another day. Harry Kreb, though, and Roberto Duran were swarmers. And the way to deal with a swarmer is you have to wear them down. And the only way you're going to wear them down, because they would stay low and all of that stuff, is you have to work their body. You'd have to go to their body. Now, if you're going to their body, understand they will try and counter you to your body, and they'll try to cramp you for space so they can get their shots off. Well, all you have to do is create certain angles to make them uncomfortable. They can't throw off their shots as they would like to. And their thing is to bully you. It's kind of like Sean Porter. Sean Porter is a guy who overwhelms you, bullies you, kind of trying to push you around on the inside. So Porter tries to fight on the inside as well. But there's a way to deal with Porter. And we saw that with Cal Brook dealt with him. Keith Thurman dealt with him. And you just have to have tight defense when you're dealing with these guys. Once you have tight enough defense, you're okay. And you're mobile enough. Like a Keith Thurman would have handled Duran easily. Floyd would have handled Duran easy. And Kreb and all these guys. With fighters walking around at 30 pounds over their fight weights, we won't see many surface. Jarrett Hurd is interesting because he's a big guy who rarely pressures you. I'm interested in knowing what his diet and rehydration is because he's an anomaly. The thing about Jarrett Hurd is, again, he knows how to switch hit. He knows how to shift. So he uses that. He also has, interesting for a tall guy, he bobs and weaves pretty well. So he uses bobbing and weaving. He times. He would leave with either hand, the right or the left. His defense is pretty much on point as well. He uses the standard Philly shell defense on both sides. He rolls shots. He also uses the high guard when necessary. So he uses the high guard, the Philly shell defense, the shifting, the rolling punches, the switching of stances, the leading off with either hand, the nice snapback, the splitting of punches, the slipping punches, rolling punches. He does various things. Now, he's not always the most coordinated, so sometimes he trips over his feet, but he's got something going on there, and he's a big guy. So to be able to do that, he can fight tall, he can fight small. I like that. So he's got a lot of variety to his game. Once he can get the punches off, especially his body punching going, he's something to try and beat. He's a hell of a fighter to try and beat. Aaron Pryor is one of the most unclinchable fighters I've ever seen. In prime, Chavez was also hard to grab. He didn't accept too many clinches. Luis Neri is pretty good in this area. True pressure fighter is rare in this era. Believe it or not, Errol Spence may be our best. He's not short. He has some athleticism, so we won't equate him with pressure. But Spence rarely understands how to come get you. In the rock, paper, scissors of boxing, a volume pressure guy can overcome the boxer. Depends on what boxer you're talking about. The reason why fighters shy away from boxers in this year is because they don't have real pressure games. There are punches in this year, but not too many pressure guys. Big difference. Thank you for writing in. Best comment I've had in a long time. And so they go on and on and on here. But I think I'll call it a day. Yep. So I can't overspend my time, but it's all right. I was just trying to see how you guys are doing and everything. Have a peaceful evening, man. Peace.